What's up, beautiful people? CorwinLGuilliams here, and hope everyone is doing well. Hope you guys are just, keeping up to the time and making it happen for you. First and foremost, put God first in everything that you do, and you know that everything must work out in your favor. Sometimes it don't work out the way you want it to work out in your mind, right? We all have plans, or you may have plans, or just a way you think things should work out. But if you truly trust in God and believe, and sometimes we are so, sometimes, let me not say we, right? Some people are so trained in doing things and behaving in a way that's like traditional or trained. You're behaving in a way that's expected by people, and is that being you? Are you being yourself when you behave that way? And so sometimes what is required for you to go to the next level, or for you to just experience just the confidence and the peace and the liberty that God makes available to us from His Spirit, according to His Spirit, by His Spirit, is to be you, right? To be you unapologetically. And you'll find that most times when we're not able to be ourselves, it's because we're considering the opinions of other people. And that most times has to do with the environments that we're in. Sometimes we are in environments that we become self-conscious, right? You become self-conscious, whether it's because you are unfamiliar, it's not, what is it? You're not accustomed to the environment, you're not accustomed to the people, or whatever the situation is. And so you may find yourself sabotaging yourself, or, just doing things with people as the opinions of people as your motivation or lack thereof. And so you want to make sure that, first and foremost, that you are not afraid to say anything or do anything or be anything, especially when it comes to doing what makes you happy, right? I do believe that you don't have to, every fight is not a fight worth fighting. Everything is not worth saying or addressing. I can tell you from experience, and I've learned this just in life, and my spiritual growth has taught me, the importance of knowing when you are, if you're gonna fight for a cause, right? If you're going to when I say fight for a cause, if you see something going on that's not right, right? I do believe that we are to say things or address things that is not right. But there are sometimes you have to really know, is this the time to address it, right? Is this the time to address it? And if I don't address it this time, this day, this hour, when will I address it, right? Let me give you an example. So I had a situation one time where I was in a class, and what I discerned with the professor was that they were, the professor was manipulative and controlling. And so he would create these workshops, or these scenarios where we would have to get in groups or whatever, and discuss how we would deal with the situation. And to be honest, honesty is the whole purpose of this platform. But what I discerned with what he was doing was his purpose of, one, creating these scenarios. They were dead-end scenarios, meaning these were scenarios that there weren't any exact answers or answers that was, one, right? These, first of all, these scenarios that he created would have, to truly answer truthfully, would have probably required multiple days of reading, rereading, and you would surely find in multiple solutions to the problem, not just one. And his goal was for the group to come up with a solution. And now, so when each group comes up with a solution, he would now come and address situations that would make the group's situation not work. So in other words, it was kind of like he would, again, this is my discernment, right? It was, and again, describing him as manipulative and controlling, right? It was his desire to, I believe, to assert his authority, even though he was already the professor. But you can tell it was a place, he was professing from a place of insecurity, because he didn't want any student to be basically correct or to know more than he knew more, right? And so there were situations where, I caught him, not only me, but just the class in general. There were things that he had written for us to do, and when we did the work based on what was written, for instance, there was one of the scenarios, there was, he described a hypothetical situation, right? And when one of the students had, rephrased what was said in the statement, he was like, that's not, that wasn't said. So basically, he didn't even remember what it is that he put in the statement. But anyways, the point I'm trying to make is there were multiple times in that classroom where I could have literally called them out on it, right? Called them out on the nonsense, especially it being, a school that to me should wholeheartedly be rooted in truth, just based off of the mission statement, meaning it being a Christian school and founded on the teachings of Christ. So automatically, in my opinion, in my belief, that gave me grounds to, to address what I believe to be just confusion and just again, that what I discerned to be manipulative and controlling, and just, again, not focused on the students' learning. It was more so a show and just parading around the class and acting like, this and this and that. But again, that was a situation where I could have addressed the situation in front of the class or privately, which I did address him privately, but I didn't do it in a way that was confrontational. I did it in a I believe to be a gentle way, and in a way that I knew he knew I was talking about him, right? So so basically, I was like, can I have a we need to talk. And the arrogance of him, he thought that, I had to talk to him about my classwork or my schoolwork. But but little did he know that the conversation that we were going to have was not going to be about my classwork, because I'm not here for that. I'm not here to do anything but to do what I'm supposed to do as a child of God, as God's servant, right? So so the conversation we had, ultimately, I discussed with him about a professor who was manipulative and controlling, and how would I go about addressing, reporting this professor to, whoever is in charge, or how would I go about dealing. No, first of all, I asked, how would I go about dealing? How should I go about dealing with this professor, right? Because this was the professor right now that I was just describing. He was someone who you can tell he had some type of leverage within the school, maybe because he worked there for a while or whatever. But and so I was basically asking him, like, what advice would you give me as your student to deal with this manipulative and controlling professor? And and so as you can see, I spoke about it as like the third person, right? Not directly to him, but but I already knew. But anyways, the Spirit said, He knows exactly who you're talking about, because especially when I said manipulative and controlling this professor, his body jerked. It was like a like a jerk. And so that told me he knows exactly who I was talking, who and what I was talking about. But anyways, so the point I was trying to make is that there are certain things that you can address right there on the spot and say what you got to say or whatever. And then there are also times where, you don't respond because in a way that people expect for you to respond, or respond in a way that's traditional, right? You want to be, I feel like when Jesus dealt with certain situations or people, right, especially people who were sinning, right, and he wasn't someone who broadcast people's sin, right? He went and he spoke to them and he addressed them, right? Even when he was, right, it was most of a one-on-one situation. And so I don't ever want to be in a situation where, at least personally, right, where I'm exposing people's sins or failures or whatever, and it's not required of me. I do believe that God can use anybody, as he did his prophets, as he did people in the Bible, to address rulers, address leaders, address certain people, because they, for whatever reason. So I do believe that, and if God had wanted me to address the situation differently, and I didn't, I've spoke to God one-on-one about that, and you know and I'll leave it at that. But I just wanted to share with you the importance of doing things not based off of what people think, right, or what you think you should do. You should always do what feels right, and sometimes doing what feels right is not always easy, right? And even when you know to do something that's right and you don't do it, don't beat yourself up, right? Don't have regret or remorse, in a sense where you're just beating yourself up because you didn't do or say or act accordingly. Those are the situations where you learn, right? Where you learn and you're reminded more than ever to do what you didn't do next time, right? So most times we go through situations where we don't necessarily act how we're supposed to act, because most times it's a new situations. We don't know how to respond. We've never dealt with situations like that. But it takes having to go through those situations one or two times to be in that environment and to know, okay, how is it if something like this happened? You're kind of like prepared, right? It's kind of like you know how to deal with the situation better because you went through it before, right? And so sometimes we beat ourselves up, right? People, on individual, you may beat yourself up, just having these high expectations of you, which is nothing wrong with that. But again, you want to know that God is your source, right? He is the one who has given you life. He's given you strength. He's given you just everything that you need to be everything that he needs you to be as his servant. And so you don't ever want to get into the mindset where it's, all you, because I think when you think that it's all you, that's when you deal with the brunt and the pressures of life and the pressures of decision. But if you believe that you have someone who goes before you and makes a way, and if it didn't work out, then you believe that it wasn't meant to be, or there'll be another way or another opportunity, then there's really no burden there, right? There's really no pressure, right? There's really no stress, right? And so we have to also consider what is having us worry. Is it pride, right? Is it relying on self and all these different things that cause people to operate from just a place where God is not there, right? And so yeah, guys, so whatever it is that you're doing, make sure that you're being you, right? Whatever that is, right? Again, we live in a world where people have all these assumptions and expectations and all these different things where people try to, you know, try to fit in or try to explain to people who misunderstand them. And you can't really explain yourself to anybody. You can't really have an answer to everyone's questions. You can't really fit the molds of individual. You just got to be you. And you have to get to the point where, like it or not, right? Just know, like it or not, right? Whatever. It is what it is. And so that confidence that you get to be that is truly from God, because you get to the space where you know that God is in control, right? You know that God gave you this opportunity, that God gives you life, that God allowed you to wake up this morning. God provided, food for you to eat. God provided your shelter. God provided everything that you need. So to even consider an individual, a mere human being, or mortal, or the opinions of them, and there's a scripture that talks about why be afraid of their words. I'm paraphrasing here, but there's a scripture that talks about, where I believe it's God saying, why be afraid of their words, right? Why be afraid of their words? In other words, why be afraid of their opinions? Why be afraid of the things that they may say about you when you're doing what's right, when you're living righteously, right? When you're being you, right? And so we have to consider these things. And so you'll go into situations where, again, you have to be mindful of. So the point I was trying to make before we, got all the way over here was, you have to know what's the reason, the true reason why you're doing what you're doing. Are you doing it to prove a point to somebody? Are you doing it, again, to fit into what someone else is thinking as far as how you should act? Let me explain. So you may be a shy person, right? And so naturally a shy person, right? And then you may be in an environment where no one knows you. They don't know, your personality to be shy. They don't know you at all. And so they may think that your shyness is probably you being afraid, or you being, someone who lacks confidence. And that's not necessarily the case. You can be a shy person or an introvert, right? Where, you just don't do well with large groups of people, or you don't do well with, just having a lot of people around. It doesn't mean that you lack confidence, right? It just means that that's not your personality. And so when you are around those type of situations, just like any situation that anybody's not comfortable being around, you're going to deal with anxiety and certain levels maybe of fear that is not necessarily unhealthy, right? It's just, you being in a situation that you're unfamiliar with or that's not comfortable for you. It doesn't mean that you're insecure. It doesn't mean that you lack confidence. It doesn't mean that you're inferior. And so you have to be mindful that there are people who are going to have all those opinions. They're going to think because you're shy or because you're an actual introvert or whatever, they're going to have all these definitions or assumptions about who you are. And you have to be, so what I was saying about being careful that you're not responding to these different assumptions is that if someone thinks that you're inferior, you don't, if someone believes that you think that you're inferior, you don't want to do anything that makes them think that you're not, right? Especially when it doesn't serve a purpose, especially when it's from an empty place. You don't want to be confident, quote unquote, because of someone who perceive you as shy. It's just like, especially when it doesn't serve a purpose. You don't want to speak out or act like you are not afraid to speak when people, or when you perceive, right? Because most times it's what we think in our heads most times, right, than actually what's really going on. And so that's another point that you have to be mindful that it's not you living in your head and and doing things based off of what's going on in your mind, right? And so, but overall, you just want to be you. You just want to rest in the confidence of who you are, and who God created you to be. And whatever that is, it can be someone who's quiet, someone who's not quiet, someone who is just point blank, straight to the point, someone who's, whatever, however God created you want to make sure that you are, in that space, and that you are in that space always, because I believe that's when God most powerfully, he moves in your life, especially when it comes to people, especially towards people who, you know what I'm saying, when you're being yourself, or you're being who you are, as a child of God, there are people who are threatened, may be threatened by that. They may be offended by that. You know what I'm saying? They may challenge that. And it's not for you to fight certain battles, right? It's not for you to get out of character. It's not for you to defend what needs no defense. It's for you to be still and know that he is God, and that he will fight your cause. He will fight your battles. And when people come for you, as they say, or they persecute you, or the word of God talks about rejoice when they have persecuted you, right? Because they've persecuted you for his sake, for his name's sake, right? And so we have to get into those mindsets. It's kind of like, don't even be afraid of persecution. Don't even be afraid of being in situations where, you know what I'm saying, you don't fit in or whatever, because you know that God is with you. You know that he is there, and he is going to defend you. I can tell you how many times God has defended me when he would orchestrate situations to shame people who have, you know what I'm saying, who had assumptions or whatever, about his child. And that's what a parent does. That's what a beautiful parent does. That's what a loving parent does. So you don't have to take up battles. You don't have to respond to the immortality. Excuse me. You don't have to respond to the mortality of humans, right? Because most times if not all the time, without God, the Spirit of God, human beings, their thinking is low level, right? It's low level. Even when they think it's amazing and great, it's not. And so it takes the light of God to shine, to expose, truth, right, of the human condition, that we are nothing without God. And so that's why God will use someone who, again, the world despises and rejects, to proclaim his name, to be honored by him, to be honorable in his sight, to be crowned, right, with glory, because that's who God is, so that no man may boast, right? No one may say, it's their academics, or it's their degree, or it's their business, or it's their platform, or it's their job, or it's their money, or it's their influence, or it's their, title that has caused them to have what they have. Because the minute you start thinking like that, it's only a matter of time before you get humbled. And going back to what with the Lord, I know that Jesus, he doesn't, again, broadcast people's sin, right? The enemy does that. The enemy loves to shame people, right? The Lord, he will come, and he's gentle, and he's kind, and he's merciful, and he is patient. And so there will be numerous opportunities, right, where God will talk to you about something, about a situation, about a character trait or character flaw that he wants you to develop, right? Things within you that he wants to help you with, right? To transform you, right? But and he's generous, and he's loving, and he's kind, right? And so you have to make sure, but there comes a time where, I believe, sometimes the correction or the tap on the shoulder, it gets a little rough, right? It gets a little more intense, because he's trying to get our attention. He's trying to get your attention. He's trying to get, you to become that person that he's created you to be. And so once you trust in God, once you put your trust in God, it doesn't matter. Like, trusting in man is a failure in itself. Once you put your trust in God, whatever it is, whatever you're struggling with, whatever it is you're dealing with in life that is not celebrated in the world, you may be going through some down times right now. You may be dealing with depression. You may be dealing with, just insecure identity issues. You understand what I'm saying? You may be dealing with just so many different things. I don't know, but put God first, right? When I say put God first, I mean bring every situation that you have towards him. Bring every issue that you have towards him. Do not bring it to a human being. Do not bring it to, to social media, unless it's, again, a lesson or something that you're trying to teach somebody or whatever. But do not Bring it to people, right? Bring it to God, because he's the only one who will ultimately, from him flows everything. So you bring it to him, then he'll send you somebody. He'll send you an opportunity. He'll send you, a video or a message to remind you or to teach you or to let you know that he's there with you and to give you the answers to the questions that you brought to him, right? But you got to put him first. Put him first and then consider everyone else after, right? But he has to be put first. And that's truly where, your confidence is. That's where you make decisions that you need to make. That's where you don't, consider, the opinions of individuals who you may have discerned doesn't have your best interest or doesn't have the best interest of not only yourself but a greater group of people if you're amongst other peoples, right? And most importantly, that's where you make the decisions that God wants you to make, right? Where you're not compromising the decisions that God wants you to make because of the concerns of other people, because of the opinions of other people. And how you do that is by putting God first. And putting God first, you start cultivating your relationships. You start developing your relationships get stronger and stronger, and you become more unapologetic about who you are and who he created you to be. And truth is that, when you get the revelation that God loved you in all your evils, right? In all your corny ways, all your ways that the world didn't celebrate, all your ways that the world condemned you about, you realize that God loved you, right? In that sense, and you truly believe that, you're going to start having an attitude, especially when it comes to human beings, that, it's going to take you to the top, right? It's going to take you to the top. It's going to take you to the top. It's going to put you in places that tradition says that you don't belong. It's going to take you to places that, that you never thought you would go, because the earth is the Lord's and the fullness thereof. God is in control. God owns everything, right? And so human beings have taught others to believe that they're in control and that they have the keys to doors and that they have opportunities for you that is one in a million. But the truth is that God has the opportunity for you. God has the power to steer somebody's heart to open a door for you. God has the power to change policies and rules and laws and things that, no human being can change. God has that power. And so, again, when you are walking with the Lord and you start to be in situations where only God can help you and you see how he moves, that's what really builds your confidence, and that's what makes you unapologetic about, your love for yourself and your love for God, because God first loved you, right? He loved you in all your flaws. So how dare someone who is not a saint come tell you about your flaws and try to make you feel like who you are, something wrong with you, right? That's a problem, right? And most times people succumb to the pressures of, and we've all been through that at some point, right? But again, my voice, right, me as a vessel, is to encourage you and to let you know your freedom is in God. Your liberty is in God. There's a liberty in God that this world cannot give. And they'll try to rob it from you. They'll try to blind you from living in it. They'll try to create all these situations to have you not exercise it and exercise it unapologetically. And it is what it is. Like, I pray, growth, over all of us, right? Growth over all of us in the revelation of God's identity for us increasingly, right? I pray just empowerment, right, by his Spirit, so that we are doing and saying the things that he needs us to say. I pray just resilience over you, right, over us, that we are just continuing in the walk, right? Continuing in faithfulness, continuing in accomplishing the plans, and continuing to trust in him, even when things are not working out the way that we desire for it to work. So just remember, guys, be you. You don't know who you are inspiring. You don't know who you are encouraging. You don't know who it is, that God is using you. Even in ways that you think you're not being used, you're being used. I can tell you that for sure. There are times where I don't think I'm being used, and that's when God was using me the most, right? That's when he was using me the most to inspire people and to encourage people and to show people how to live uniquely and peculiarly, right? To live in a manner that, again, is not based off of people's expectations or worldly expectations or the traditions of man, but to live according to who God created you to be. And that's it. And how you get that confidence, how I got that confidence, is through favor, the favor of God, the Spirit of God. And, and I'm so grateful that I can have a platform here to come on you and speak to you guys, even right now, being on this video. Like, who does a video like this? Me, right? Because that's how I wanted to do my video. You know what I'm saying? And there may be people who may think, oh, that's unprofessional or whatever, but who cares? This is my video, right? And this is my voice, and God's Spirit is flowing through my voice, and it doesn't matter what it looks like. It's His power overall. His power is what's most important. So yeah, I'm gonna do these type of videos, and I'm gonna do more unconventional, untraditional videos, right? And that's just what it is. And so, and so again, you also shouldn't be afraid of just the judgment and the opinions of people, again, because that is what stops people from living. That is what stops people from being unique and them. And I can tell you, humility will take you a long way when you just humble yourself and say, you know what, I'm not fighting this battle. You come for me, I'm going to send my Father for you. In fact, my Father is already on guard, already dealing with you, right? That's the type of attitude you got to have, and that's the type of attitude that will allow you to just be, right? You don't, just be whatever that is for you, God looks at the heart. Man looks at the outside, but God looks at the heart, and He will never let you be ashamed, especially by no heathen. He will never let you be ashamed. He will never let you be ashamed by people who don't even love themselves, right? Don't even know who they are, right? And so, yeah, beautiful people. So thank you again for watching my video. Definitely check out my website. I'm going to leave the information in the description box. You can definitely subscribe and send me a message through my email. I'm also going to leave. And any questions or concerns that you may have, anything that you want to talk about, I am your coach, influencing you to self-love. And if there's anything that I can email you, I do email coaching. I also do coaching via the phone and via Zoom, and also on Facebook. So, whatever is comfortable for you, just send me an email. Just send me, your questions, your concerns, and we'll move forward from there. Okay, and definitely support the platform, right? Support the blog. Support via the link, the support link in my description box. I appreciate it, and I'll talk to you guys soon. CorwinLGuilliams.